Most ACL rehab plans fail, and it's not because people don't try hard enough. It's because the process is often confusing, overwhelming, and lacking structure. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do in your ACL rehab so that you don't go back with re-injury and lack of confidence, using this one simple blueprint that I've used over and over again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh. I'm a performance physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach for the last 8 years. In this time, I've helped over 80 ACL individuals successfully graduate ACL rehab back to their sports, back to their life with no re-injuries. Let me show you exactly what the blueprint is and how you can implement it today to your own rehab. Okay, so we're gonna start with an analogy here. So we're gonna pretend like the ACL injury is basically like a big storm or big hurricane that came, right? The house is your body or your knee, right? So the ACL injury happened because of a big storm. So in this case, it could be like a non-contact soccer injury. Most people, what they'll do is they'll kind of stack on bricks, right? They're gonna stack on the foundations of a house, which needs to be layered by bricks. And the bricks are the foundations of the house. So if you think about the bricks, there are these pieces here that essentially need to be stacked, layered nicely so that it can build and stack and more things layered later on. The problem is, right, what most people will do, they'll take shortcuts. Like for example, this lady is taping up the windows. So if you think of broken windows, you don't want to just tape them up. You want to actually replace the windows. You want to do the good job, the things that actually make it sustainable, right? If you look at the bricks here, they're also very unsteady. And you can see they're starting to crack, right? So most people kind of skip certain processes in ACL rehab that will, essentially we'll get into it later on, but they'll pay the price essentially later on. So what this leads to, this is just an analogy, right? So what this leads to is, if you've heard of the ACL statistics. So some of these are really shocking, right? There's big numbers that I'm gonna fill in the blanks here. 1 in 4 people never get back to their pre-injury levels, meaning they don't feel confident, they don't feel strong, they don't feel athletic enough to go back to what they were doing before. That's 1 in 4 people, which is about 25%. Now, the re-injury, this is even more shocking, is 1 in 3. So 1 in 3 people actually re-injure that same ACL or the opposite ACL, so the other knee, within 2 years of coming back. So 1 in 3 people re-injure the same ACL or the opposite ACL within 2 years. The last one's very shocking to me. 1 in 4 people never return to sports because of fear. So this is fear of re-injury. This is fear of lack of confidence, right? So all in all, these statistics are valid. They have been studied for the last few decades, and they unfortunately haven't gotten better over the last few years. So clearly there's something we're missing here. And I truly believe it's the lack of structure. If we want to think of a house, we think of the outside structure first, right? So we want to have good foundations on the outside, and then eventually we'll fill in the blanks, right? We got the bricks. My bricks aren't looking that nice, guys, sorry. Okay, so we got the bricks that have to be layered, and eventually you'll have a door, right? And then you'll have a roof, etc. Windows. Okay. So the problem with the re-injury is that these bricks, if they're not stacked nicely, they're not stacked with order or with a blueprint or with a plan, they will stack on like this, right? And so with that, if another storm comes in, so let's say we draw a big storm here. So let's say wind, 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 right? And guess what? That will break down again, right? You're gonna have basically the same situation. And this can be synonymously compared to the re-injuries that we just saw. The point is, you wanna do things the right way the first time. So moving forward, right? What we wanna do instead is we wanna have structure. Now, what does structure mean, right? Structure will mean, so number 1, checklist, right? So with these checklists, it gives us an idea of what to work on for the next few months. Now, many people that I talk to, individuals that are going through rehab, have no idea when I mention checklists. They go, what are you talking about? right? Because their physio or their doctor never gave them any sort of criteria list. They don't even know what to do next. They're kind of using random exercises they find online, or they're just following one sheet of paper for 6 months, doing the same things over and over again. That's not good, right? Because we know our bodies adapt. Our bodies get stronger. As it adapts, it needs new stimulus. It needs new challenges. So for example, this checklist that we've made, this is actually not what I've made, but we use this from one of the researchers that in Australia that does a lot of research on ACLs, Mick Hughes. Some of you may know him. He uses this movement checklist, right? Essentially, can your body handle the demands of jogging, right? So we've got the single leg squats, bridges, calf raise, your quad muscles have to hit a certain symmetry, forward hopping, vertical hopping, all with good quality. So somebody needs to be there to guide you, run through these checklists to make sure that you're progressing forward. That way, that leaves no room for guessing, right? If you're not ready, it will show. And if you're not ready, you're not moving on to the next stage of rehab. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to bring you guys into structure, right? Now I'm going to talk about what it's done to my clients, right? So I'm going to use a cartoon character. This is Pamela here, right? Pamela is a real client of mine. She's actually graduated from rehab a couple months ago. Her goal was to play racket sports, and that was a big deal because that was her way of connecting with her partner and her friends, right? So this is Pamela playing racket sports. So we use the technology, right, just to track if someone's getting stronger, someone's getting more athletic. This is one of the technologies that we use. So in just 4 weeks, right? So in just 4 weeks, we measured her in the beginning and in 4 weeks later. Using the blueprint that we've created and the programming that we've created, Pamela was able to get an increase in pretty much all the metrics there. So just to go over these to simplify them, jump height increased by almost 50% in 4 weeks, right? She got 39% faster, which is this time to take off. So her time to take off the ground is much faster, 39% higher. Braking rate of force development is her ability to decelerate and slow down. This is super important for ACL injuries because that is the moment where injuries happen, is when they can't decelerate, they can't slow down. And so there's this big shift and twist essentially that happens that can potentially lead to an injury. So with that, she actually improved over 600% in a matter of 4 weeks. So this is just a small example of one of my clients that we've used a structure, we've used programming that is tailored towards her goals, and this is what she was able to do in 4 weeks. And this is just one example, guys, of stacking the foundations on the right way, right? So stacking the bricks. So when we started with Pamela, we started with strength, right? Specifically single leg strength. Single leg strength. We did a lot of stability work, right? That set the foundation. And the next layer up, what we were able to do because we had a solid foundation was we actually were able to layer plyometrics, right? We were able to go into landing. We were able to go into deceleration, right? And so you can see this keeps going up and up, right? So we'll go even higher. The next stage, now we went into sprinting. Now we went into COD. COD is change of direction. So as we layer these up, eventually we can close the house because the end goal, this is the end goal, and that's going to be different for each of you. And for Pamela, it was racket sports. And so we were able to get her back within 10 months post-op successfully. So with no guessing, we had a framework for each time. And with that, when a wind comes in, tries to break it down, the foundation's too solid, right? We never broke down from the beginning. Strength, single leg work, single leg stability, it was always solid from the beginning. So this house is not gonna break down. So that's essentially, hopefully that makes sense. That analogy is what I use to make sense of this topic. And that's what I want to touch on today, right? Very quickly, is you have to have structure, right? You have to have accountability, a blueprint, but also you have to have foundations. You have to have foundations. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's all I want to talk about. Thank you for listening. I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you want to dive into my approach and what this can potentially help you with, I have something called the blueprint that I call is the ACL Performance Blueprint. I've made actually a masterclass video that is available for you to see. I'll drop the link in the description below. So hopefully now you know how to go about ACL rehab without overcomplication. Hopefully that was simple to understand, build a solid structure. We're gonna dive into more topics in the next few videos. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.